Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? Is my volume okay? Everybody can hear? Great. See a lot of familiar faces. This is good. Hello, Aiden. Hello, Hartley. Hello, Aurora. And Deshana. And all right, so what we're going to do is, if you remember what we got up to last time, we wanted to make sure everybody could get Pico 8 loaded. So if you weren't here yesterday and you're not at this point today, unfortunately, I can't really take time to help you get up and running today. But with each class, what I do is I'll make a video of everything we're going to cover today. And I will send that out as an email to all of you who are registered for this class. I'll send that to everyone to the email address that you registered with, and that will go out. And it's a video that will cover everything we're going to cover today. And then at the end of next day, you'll get the same thing. So if you miss any part of this, or you're not totally up and ready to go, totally fine. Just stay and watch, and then you will get a video at the end that you can follow along. You can pause it and so forth. And so what we're going to cover today is normally we have 3 days of this class, and so we usually use the first day to just kind of get everybody familiar with some coding concepts. We unfortunately only have 2 days this time. So we're just going to jump right into stuff, and I will explain things as I go. But it really, some of it for those of you who are just totally new to this, it might be a little tough to get all the concepts in your head at the same time. But that's okay, because again, I will be going and doing a video after this that covers everything we covered today. So you can go back and watch it and see if there's anything that makes more sense the second time you watch it, things like that. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to show you a real quick around Pico 8, and just so you know what you're doing, and then we're going to get started. So let's go ahead and get started here. So we have this screen up here, and this is what you get when you first start, okay? And this waits for you to type in a command. And we're not going to type in a command just yet. What we're going to do is hit the escape key, which is in the top left of your keyboard. And if you hit escape, you see it goes into this mode. And these are the editors. And this is where you edit code. And you just type in code, and any of the code that goes for the game goes in here. Okay. And then what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to this area. Oops, sorry, 1 second. Oh, hold on. I got some windows in the way here. I got to move. Sorry about that. So what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to this area right up here, because this is all the different modes that we're going to go through in Pico 8 that you should be paying attention to. Okay. So the first one you can see up here, this is the 2 parentheses. That's for this editor where we write code. The next one, the little monster face, this is where we're going to do all the art for our game. And the art in video games is often called sprites. So each little picture we make is called a sprite. And this one is already there, and we just leave it there because it has a special meaning. But that's the first one. That's number 0. So we usually start with this one, which is number 1. And you get 8 dots across and 8 dots down. So when you go to draw something, you just, it's pretty big, but it won't be this big in the game. It'll be this big in the actual game. And then, so you can use these 16 colors, and each color has a number, and you can see that number down here in the corner when you move your mouse over a color. So like when I move my mouse over yellow, you'll see down in the bottom corner, it says color 10. So right down here is where it'll say. So what you want to do is, if you need the number of a specific color, you can go to the sprite editor right here, and then move your mouse over a color and see what color number it tells you. And And then the next thing is, this is a map editor, which we're not going to use for the game we're making today, because the game we're making today is pretty simple, doesn't need a map. But you could use the sprites that you make and draw a map. Like you could, if you had walls or grass or rocks or things like that, you could use those pieces of art to make a map, kind of like a grid, and each spot on the grid is one piece of art. The other thing that you have is a sound editor, which is the next one, little play button. And this one is for making sounds. And it's really easy. You can just draw the sound, and when you hit space, you hear it. You can slow it down by clicking on this or right-clicking, or you can click and drag it back and forth to slow it down or speed it up. So if I slow it down to 8 and then hit space, you can see space is what makes it play. And then these are different instruments, so it can sound, different ways. Like if I do the same thing, sounds different, or this one, or this one. So anyway, so then the last one is the music editor, where you can take the sounds that you created and put them together so it plays music. The ones that we're going to need to pay attention to today are the code editor and the sprite editor and the sound editor. Those are the three that we're going to be working with today. So we have code, which is a little parentheses, sprite editor, which is a little monster head, and the sound editor, which is a little play button. Okay. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to save our game. And so while you're in this editor, hit the escape key, and you'll see it goes back out of the editor and is ready for you to type something. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make a simple game where things are dropping from the sky and you've got to run back and forth and catch them. So let's call this drops. So I'm going to type save space drops and hit enter. So everybody should do that. Type save space drops and hit enter. Oops, let me clear that out. Okay. All right. So everybody should have that done. You type save space drops. And now from this point forward, if you hit Control S, if you hold down Control and tap S, or on a Mac, if you have a Mac computer, then you hold down Command and hit S, that will save. And you'll see it pops up that little message on the bottom and says saved. And that's how you know that you're saved. So you should save as often as you want. Like sometimes I save, like I'll write a few lines of code and I'll save, or I'll draw a sprite and then I save, or I make a sound and then I save, just because it's then if something happens, you don't have to worry. Okay, so now let's hit escape and go back into the editor. So we're going to be writing some code that today what we're going to do is we're going to make the player and have them move around on the screen. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the sprite editor, and we just need to make a player. So go make sure you're on sprite number 1. See, each one has a number. Make sure you're on sprite number 1. Now I put a big smiley face here, but I'm going to get rid of it. And I'm going to use the color black to erase stuff. And I'm going to make a character here. I'm going to give him an orange shirt and a yellow belt. And I'm going to make my player's arms raised up in the air like this, because my player is going to be catching stuff. So I want them to have their arms in the air. So we get their feet and their hands and the belt. You can make them whatever colors you want. It does not matter. You can make your player look like however you want. You could make your player a big bucket, or you could make it, I don't know, whatever you want. You can make it a giant smiley face, or maybe a shark with a big mouth. It's a little hard to do that kind of thing when you only have 8 pixels. Pixels are each of these dots, 8 pixels by 8 pixels. But you should have some player here. And remember, make sure it's in number 1 here, okay? Each one has a different number, okay? And we're at number 1. So I'm going to give everybody a minute to finish making their player. When you finish making your player, go ahead and raise your hand so I can kind of get an idea who's done and who's not done. And if you haven't finished by the time we move on, that's okay. You can always go back and change it later. We want to make sure we have something at sprite number 1 ready to go. No, we're not going to make a basket at this time. We're just going to make it so they catch it with their hands. But if you want to make the player a basket, you can definitely do that. Adya, you didn't miss anything yet. All we've done is we saved our game and we made a player. So if you just joined and you missed what we talked about at the beginning, usually you start out, oops, hold on one second. Usually you start out Pico 8. I'm going to save. I'm going to hit Control S and save it. And I'm just going to do this so anybody can see. So if you start out Pico 8 and you're just starting, you would type save drops. That's the name of the game we're going to make. Now I already have one, so it would ask me, hey, do you want to overwrite it? I'm going to say no, but normally you would just save drops and it would do it. And I'm going to have to load drops because I already made it. So all we did was we typed save drops, and then we went to the sprite editor, and in the first sprite slot, we just made a player. And it's okay if the player is just a big blob, doesn't matter. All we need right now is just something there. So if you have a player sprite, go ahead and raise your hand. Good, lots of player sprites. And again, you don't need to make it fancy right now. It's okay if you just put something really small and simple there. Okay, so we're going to move on to adding code because we have a fair bit of code to write today. And I want to make sure we have time. So if you haven't finished your sprite, that's okay. Yes, Adya, I'm gonna show you how to save again. So when you first start up, let me save this. When you first start up Pico 8, then you see this, and I just want you to type save drops and hit enter, and then yours won't say, you know, it already exists, but it'll just save it. And then when you're done with that, hit escape, and then you go up here to the little monster head, and in the first spot, you would draw your player. And you can draw it however you want. I'm gonna load my game though, because I already have a player right there. And again, don't worry if you miss anything. I'm going to be sending out a video to everyone who signed up for this class with exactly what we cover today. So nobody will miss anything. Good. So let's go to our code. So let's go over here. And what we're going to do is we need to write 3 things called functions. Okay. And a function is a set of instructions for the computer to do. And the first one is called init. And then you type function underscore init, and underscore, you hit shift and then a dash key, which is right next to the 0 key. Underscore init and then parenthesis, parenthesis. And that's the first one. And init stands for initialize, which happens at the beginning of the game. So anything that's in between here, anything between this and this, will happen at one time at the beginning of the game. So any code we put there will happen one time. Then we have another one called function underscore update. And don't forget the end. So this is the next one. And anything that happened in anything that's in here, any code in here will happen 30 times a second as we play our game. And then the last one is function underscore draw, D-R-A-W, draw. And that also you have to put end. So it should be function underscore init, parenthesis, parenthesis, end, then function underscore update, parenthesis, parenthesis, end, then function underscore draw, parenthesis, parenthesis, end. And anything that's in draw also happens 30 times a second right after update. So it goes init, then update, draw, update, draw, update, draw. And just keeps doing that until your game is over. And this happens 30 times a second. It does update, draw, update, draw. So what we need to do is pretty simple, okay? We're going to, first off, in our init, we're going to make some variables. Now, variables are just names that can hold information. So I'm going to hit space, So I'm going to make a variable called score, and it's going to store the number 0. So I'm saying, when I say score equals 0, it says take 0 and put it in score. Then I'm going to do another variable called lives, and I'm going to set that to 5. We're going to give our player 5 lives at the beginning. And then the next one we're going to do is called game underscore over equals false. And false is has a special meaning in code, which is you can have true or false. And you can compare things and see, is this bigger than that? Or is this, the same as that? And then you get true and false. Yes, I will say what the functions do again. So init, this first one, anything that's inside there, anything between function and end, happens one time at the beginning of the game. Init stands for initialize, which means to start something off. So init happens one time when we start the game. So at the beginning of the game, it'll set the score to 0, it'll set the lives to 5, and it says the game over is false, meaning the game's not over, which is true. Then we have another function called update and another one called draw. And these ones, both of these happen 30 times a second, again and again and again. And it runs update first, and then it runs draw. So it goes init, then update, draw, update, draw, update, draw, update, draw. And it just keeps going back and forth doing update, draw, update, draw, update, draw the whole time. 30 times a second, it runs update, draw. And that way, if we put anything in here in between function and end, this will happen 30 times a second. So we have our init has some, it has some variables. And now we want to go down here to draw. And what we're going to do is we are going to type CLS. And I'm going to put 1. Now, if you put a 1 between the parentheses, CLS parenthesis 1 end parenthesis, what that does, that tells it clear the screen, but use color number 1. And if you remember, color number 1 is this one right here. It's this blue color. And if you look down in the corner down here, you'll see it says 1. So that's color 1. So we're going to make like a dark blue sky. Same color as our code editor here. And then we're going to type enter, and then rect fill, which stands for a filled rectangle. So we're going to draw a rectangle and fill it with a color. Now this takes, then put parenthesis, parenthesis, because we're going to give it numbers to know how to build a rectangle. Now here's the cool thing about rectangles is that when you make a rectangle, you actually only need 4 numbers. And I'll explain why, okay? So when let me just make a rectangle here. So let's say we're going to draw a rectangle from here to here to here to here. This is our rectangle. We actually only need to know where this corner is and where this corner is. And then it will figure out, okay, now draw this way until you get over this dot and then stop. Then draw down until you get to this dot. And then for this way, it says, okay, now draw down until you get level with this, and then draw over until you get to it. So you can build a rectangle with just knowing 2 positions. If you have 1 dot here and 1 dot here, it knows how to build a rectangle from those 2 dots. But you need to tell it how far over and how far down this dot is. And that's called X, which is how far over, and Y, which is how far down. Okay, so if you think of 0, 0 is up here, then there's 127 dots this way, and these dots are called pixels, like this, P-I-X-E-L-S, pixels. So there's 120, it goes from 0 to 127. So if you think about it, that's really 128 because we're counting 0 as one of them. And there's going down this way, there's another 128 from 0 up here to 127. So if we put a dot in at 127, 127, it would be in this corner. If we put a dot at 0, 0, it would be in this corner. If we put a dot at like 40, that would be 40 over this way, and then like 80 down. So like 40, 80, like that. This means how far over and how far down. So that would be probably be like around here. Okay. So I hope this all makes sense. What we're doing is we're just going to make a rectangle. We're going to fill in the bottom of the screen with a color. And so we want to say where we want to draw it. We want to draw it the top corner and the bottom corner, like right here. And then what it'll do is it will fill in a rectangle. It will fill in a rectangle in between those dots. And that's going to be our ground. Okay. So let's make our ground. So we're going to type rect fill. Hold on one sec. Let me catch up. So we're going to type rect fill. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say start at 0 dots over, 0 pixels over, and 120 down. So that's pretty far down the screen. Then we're going to say now the other dot is going to be the very far corner of the screen. Okay, so you remember that one's 127, 127. That's all the way in the corner of the screen. And then we're going to use color 3. And if you look at color 3 is this green one. Okay, so we're going to make a green floor. You can use any colors you want. You don't have to use green. I'm using green, but you could use bright blue, you could use red or yellow or bright green or brown, whatever you want. So you just find the color down here that you want to use. I'm using green, but you can use whatever color. So I'm going to say color 3. Okay, and now if we save it and run it. Now to run it, you hit Control R, or on a Mac is Command R. And if you run it, you should see this. And if you see, it's clearing the whole screen out with blue, and then it's drawing a rectangle down in the bottom corner of the screen and making it color 3 or green. And then if you hit escape and then escape again, it goes back into your code. Okay. So I'm going to take a picture of this so that you can see it next to me, so that if you still need to type stuff in, you'll still be able to do that. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's put that over here. That way, if you still need to type it in, you won't lose it. Oops, I realized part of my window got covered up there. Okay. There we go. Okay, let's keep going. So now we need to make our player, okay? And that's not very hard. We're going to add a new code tab up here, hit the plus symbol, and that makes a new code tab. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to write a couple new functions for making a player, okay? And another function for moving the player. So what we're going to do is we're going to type function make underscore player and parenthesis, and then put end. It's important you use the underscore because functions have to be one word, but we want 2 words, make player, but we can't use a space, otherwise it makes it 2 words. So we use an underscore, which is the shift dash key. And that way it makes it look like 2 words to us, but the computer still thinks it's 1 word. And so for us, it's easy to read as make player, but the computer thinks it's just make player. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to make a new kind of variable that can store other piece of information, that can store more than just one piece of information. And the way we do that is we type P for player equals, so P is the name of the variable, equals curly brace, curly brace. Now the curly braces are next to the P key on your keyboard. If you look right next, it's like, you know, U, I, O, P, and then there's like these squiggly characters and they're called curly braces and square brackets. If you hold down shift and hit the key next to P, that makes this curly brace. And then you hit the key, hold down shift and hit the key next to it, it makes an ending curly brace. Okay. So that kind of says like, okay, we want to store a bunch of things in this one variable. And this kind of acts like a hug to say like, okay, anything, this is going to hold a bunch of stuff. And now we can say p.x equals, and then we'll say 60, because that'll be like 60 dots over, and p.y equals 112. So that's 112 dots down. So it's pretty low on the screen because the player is going to be on the ground. And then we do p dot s for sprite. So p dot s is going to equal, and then I'm going to use 1, but remember, your sprite has a number on it. So whatever you made your player at, which is probably 1, but if you made your player over here, you'd use 42. But if you made your player here, it's under number 1. So we say p dot s equals 1. This way, the game knows which sprite, which piece of art to write or to put on the screen. Okay, so that's that function. This makes our player. It makes a variable called p and tells the code, hey, there's a bunch of stuff I want to store in here. And then we add all those extra things, p dot x, p dot y, p dot s. And so we have all of these things in here. Now let's make another function called move player and then put end. Move player, again, you have to put underscore. So move underscore player, parenthesis, parenthesis. Lucas, did you make your sprite in spot 0? Or did you make it in spot 1? You made it in spot 0? Okay, that's okay. Usually try not to make something in spot 0. For this game, it's okay, but usually we try to leave spot 0 alone and just use the next one in number 1. So not a problem if you use number 0, but just next time, we'll use number 1 instead and just leave 0 alone. So for you, what you would have to do is you would say p.s equals 0 because that's where your player is. My player is in spot 1, so I used number 1. Okay, so for function move player, what we want to do is we want to say if parenthesis, parenthesis. Now what we need to do is check to see if something is true before we do it. So we say if button parenthesis shift L. Now if you hit shift L, you get this little arrow glyph, okay? And the button is a function that checks to see, is this button being pressed? So is the left button being pressed? And you have to put parentheses around it. So it says if button left is being pressed, and you have parentheses around that. So it's parenthesis, button, start parenthesis, shift L, end parenthesis, end parenthesis. If the left button's being pressed, then p.x minus equals 2. And what that does is that subtracts 2 from p.x. So this will take 2 away from p.x. So if x was 60, if they press the left button, now it will be 58. Okay? Then hit enter, and we're going to type the same thing again, but all a tiny bit different. If parenthesis button parenthesis shift R, which is the right glyph. So shift R will type this little right symbol, parenthesis, parenthesis, then p.x plus equals 2. Oops, not 1, plus equals 2. So that means if they press the right button, it will add 2 to how far over they should be. Remember, p.x is how far left and right should the player be. This little shape, if you hold down shift L, it will make the left one. If you hold down shift R, it will make the right one. So shift L and shift R, like a capital L and a capital R will make those symbols. Okay, so now here's the problem though. If they keep pressing the button, they'll end up going off the screen, and we don't want that. So Hartley has a great question. Why are we moving 2 pixels and not 1 pixel? Well, that's because if we move 1 pixel, then it goes bip, 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 really slow, and that's super annoying. Slow games are no fun. So if we move 2 pixels, it goes brrr and moves a lot faster. And we want the player to move fast enough to feel fun. And I found that 2 pixels moving each time is actually way more fun than 1 pixel. So that's why we're moving 2 pixels. But the problem is, if we keep subtracting 2, eventually we're going to get off the screen, and that's not good. We don't want to get off the screen. We want to only go up against the edge. So the lowest that p.x should be is 0. Okay? So, but the highest that p.x should be is 120. We don't want p.x to be more than 120, and we don't want it to be less than 0. So how do we keep it between those two? And there's a really easy way to do it. What we can do is we can say p.x equals mid, and mid is a cool function because if you give it 3 numbers, it will give you whichever one is in the middle of those numbers. So we say mid 0, comma, p.x and 120. And what that means is that look at these 3 numbers and figure out which one is in the middle of those 3 and make sure p.x is set to the middle of them. So let's say p.x got less than 0. Let's say p.x got to like, or let's say it got more than 120. Let's say p.x gets to like 122. Well, if you wrote out 0, p.x and 120, like 0, 122, and 120, like let's say this is p.x. Well, if you put these in order, which one's in the middle? Well, this one would have to go over here. So now which one's in the middle? 120. So 120 would become p.x. Now let's say p.x becomes like -2. Well, now let's put these in order. Well, that means -2 would have to go over here. So now which one's in the middle? 0? Okay, good. So p.x becomes 0. But most of the time, p.x will be in the middle, like it'll be like 60. So if we have these in order, which one's in the middle? 60. So it just keeps it between these 2 numbers. Milo, we could do that. We could, for now, we're just going to make it so you have to try to catch stuff. And if you miss things, you lose a life. But so now I'm going to hit save, Control S or Command S. And I'm going to take a picture of what's on the screen, and I'm going to put it over here so you have plenty of time to type it in if you still have stuff to type. So if you still have stuff to type, don't worry. I'm going to put it right over here so that you can still see it. Okay, so there it is. And now what we need to do is we need to go back and we need to go use these. So we wrote out the code for these. We wrote out the instructions that these functions are going to use. So when we tell it to make a player, it's going to do these things. When we tell it to move a player, it's going to do these things. Okay. Hartley, we're not going to do that at this point because we don't have enough time, but that is definitely something that could be done, could be added. So now we're going to go back to 0. And at the very beginning of our game, we need to tell it, go do our make player function. So make player, parenthesis, parenthesis, make underscore player. This tells it, go do all those steps that we just wrote out. And then in update, we're going to say, if not game over, parenthesis, parenthesis, put parenthesis on both sides, then, and then we need an end. Then, if not game over, then move player. But then we're going to put something in between that. We're going to say else. What we're going to do is we're going to listen for them to press a button. So if the game is not over, if not game over, then move the player, which is that other function that we just wrote. But if it is game over, let's say, so it checks, is it not game over? Nope, the game is over. Okay, good. Then we're going to do this instead. And if what we're going to say is we're going to say if button P, parenthesis, shift X, so capital X will make this little symbol, parenthesis, parenthesis, then run the init function. And then remember, init happens at the beginning of the game. So this is basically telling it to start our game over. So let's take a look at what this does. So first under init, we say make player. Then under update, we say if not game over, then move the player. So as long as the game's not over, let the player move. But if it is game over, then see if they hit a button and hit the button X. Remember, you have to do shift X to do this symbol. And if they press this button, then run the init function, which means start the game over. Now, what's really important is you have to make sure that you have these lined up so that you can see what's what. So if, else, end, and the function should have its end too. Okay, it's really important. I'm going to take a picture of this and put it also over here so that you can see it, because we're going to scroll down and I don't want you to be like, wait, I can't see, because I want you to be able to see. Okay. So I'm going to put this over here so you can still see it. Okay, now we need to add something to the draw function, because we need to actually draw our player. And we're going to use the, we haven't told it to draw the player yet. So we actually need to tell it to draw the player. We made the player in the code, but we haven't made the player in terms of telling it to draw it to the screen. So we use the SPR function, which stands for sprite. And remember, this is a sprite, and this is sprite number 1. And if you remember, we're storing which sprite in here under p.s. Okay, and we're storing where the player is in p.x and p.y. So that's what we're going to do here. Under SPR, we're going to say, which sprite should we draw? Well, draw p.s. That's which sprite. And comma, then how far over? p.x. And how far down? Comma, p.y. So this draws our player. It uses the sprite function, and inside the parentheses, it says, use p.s as the sprite number, comma, p.x, how far over to draw the sprite, comma, and p.y, how far down. So this will draw this sprite at this x and this y coordinate. Now we should also draw what the score is and how many lives they have. So let's type print, parenthesis, then put in quotes, use the quotes, which is shift and then the key right next to the enter key or the return key, quote, score, colon, end quote. And then we have to use ... score. And what that does is this says, take the number that's being stored here and add it on to what we're printing out. So we're printing out what's inside the quotes. We're saying score, colon, and then we use ... and then the name of the variable that's holding our score. So it says, take the number that's in there and add it on to what we're printing out. So it's going to say score, and then of course at the beginning it'll say score 0. Then we have to tell it where to print this. Well, we want to kind of put it up toward the top. So we're going to say comma 2 pixels over and 2 pixels down. So that's going to be like right up at the top of the screen. And we're going to draw it in color 7, which is white. Okay, you can draw whatever color you want. I'm using white, but you can use whatever color if you want to draw it in red or blue or green, whatever you want. And then we also need to print how many lives we have. So we type print, quote, lives, colon, quote, ... lives. And then we have to tell it how far over. Now this one's going to be up in the corner of the screen up here. So we have to draw way more pixels over this way, but still only 2 pixels down. So this time, what we're going to do is we're going to say, draw 99 pixels over and 2 pixels down, and also use color 7, which is white. Okay, and then after that, we just want to print on the screen if the game is over. So we'll say, if parenthesis game over, then end, and then in between that, we're going to say, print shift X to play again. Remember, shift X does this symbol here, okay? Shift X to play again. Now this we want to kind of print in the middle of the screen. So we're going to say 32 dots over, so 32 dots over, and 64, comma, 64 dots down, comma, 7, okay? So this prints X to play again, 32 dots over, 64 dots down, using color 7. But remember, it only does that if game is over. So if game over, then do this print. Otherwise, it's going to skip it. So I want to save it with Command S or Control S, depending on if you're a Mac or PC. And then Command R or Control R. Now you can see it's drawing our player and it's printing the score and the lives number. Now if we press left and right arrow keys, it should be subtracting or adding to p.x. And if we have our other thing going, it won't make it p.x get less than 0, and it won't make p.x get more than 120. So now it will keep us on the screen. We can go back and forth. Okay, so now if I'm going to move back to the code so you can see. And also on the end of this line, remember, it's Shift X to play again, comma 32, comma 64, comma 7, and then an end parenthesis. Okay? So remember, to start to run your code, first save it, Command S or Control S, then Command R or Control R to run it. Okay, and then you can go back and forth. Okay, so if anybody, is everybody able to run their code, or did anybody run into problems? If you had any problems, please tell me. It's possible that when you went to run it, like say, let's say you don't have a parenthesis and you go to run it and it goes blank and just says something blah, 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 and you look on, it says line 17, tab 0. So you hit escape. Usually it tries to move you there. And then you can look on line 17, which you can see down here on tab 0, and you can say, oh, I forgot a parenthesis. So Hartley, if it doesn't let you move the character, first up here, make sure you say in your update function, if parenthesis not space game underscore over, then move underscore player, and you have to remember to put the parenthesis at the end. Yes, I will keep the code on the screen. Here, I'm gonna copy this to the screen so you can see it. And then I'm gonna put it over the other one that's up on the top there. Hold on one second. So I'm gonna put it over here. And then what I'm also gonna do is I'm going to do this part over here. And I'm going to save that too, so that you can see the extra little bit there. Okay, hold on one second. Right there, look at that. Now you can see off the edge of the screen. Okay, good. And then, so I'm going to scroll up so you can see this code. Hartley, you can see the code down here. Let's see, right over here. This is the code in the update section. So if you were able to run it and it works and you can move back and forth, raise your hand. Good to see lots of hands raised. This is great. All right. What's up, Lucas? What are you running into? So while I'm waiting for Lucas to type that, so this is what we're going to get done for today. And we actually did everything today that I wanted to get done, which is fantastic. Okay, Lucas, here's what I'm going to do to help you out. Because we have to end off, I'm going to send you an email right after this. As soon as this is over, I'm going to send you an email. And okay, okay, Luca, also you're having a problem too? Okay, so here's what we're gonna do is because we do have to end off because there's another class that's going to be starting soon. I'm going to, here, I'm just going to put it in the, all right, I'm going to put it in, just give me 1 sec here. I'm going to try to pull up the info that I need. Give me 1 second, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to put, okay, Summer, I got your question. Anjali, we're not going to be able to finish the game today. We do need to finish it tomorrow. But tomorrow, everybody will get a video emailed to them as well. So even if you're not able to make the class tomorrow, you'll still get a video in your email that shows all the steps that we did today so that you can get it done. Milo, we actually don't have any homework to do today because we got done everything I wanted to get done. So I'll have a video that explains what we did today, but if you did everything today, you actually are all caught up. I know, I'm sorry. But tomorrow I will have some extra things that you can do past what we're ending off with. So you can do things like make it faster or make it so that there's bad things that drop and things like that. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put in an answer here. Here we go. So I'm going to send this. This is a Zoom meeting that I am going to start. I put it in one of the answers to Lucas. That is a link to a Zoom meeting that I will start as soon as this class is over. I will start up that Zoom meeting, and then I will help everybody individually one by one, and we'll just get everybody sorted out so that everybody's all up and running. Okay. So if you didn't get that, I will. Does everybody who need it, were they able to see the link in the answers? If you needed help and you can see the link, raise your hand. So Lucas, did you see the link? Hartley, Anjali, Jake, Luca, good. Summer, Nate, excellent. Okay, good. So you have the link copied off, so it's like copied somewhere else, because when this is over, I don't want you to lose it. Okay, so great. So what I'm going to do is I have to, oh, good. That's good to hear. So I have to end this meeting now because we have another class that's going to start any minute. But then I'm going to start up that meeting that I just sent everybody the info for in the answers. And then we can just continue on, and I'll just help everybody one by one till everybody's up and running. Yes, you can definitely Zoom again. So if you look in the answers, Aurora, can you see the Zoom meeting info that's in the answers there? Because that is a Zoom meeting I'm starting as soon as this one's over. Okay, I'm going to put it again. I'm going to put it to answer in your answer here. Okay. Anjali, I'm going to put it in here. Does anybody else still need the Zoom info? So Aurora, I will also be sending out a video just like previous times. Make sure everybody has everything that they need to do what we did today. Okay, good. Does anybody else still need the Zoom info that doesn't have it? Nate, I didn't send it in Gmail, but I'm going to put it as an answer to your question right here. Okay. So also, I'm going to put up on the screen here my email address. If you didn't get the Zoom info and you still need it, then email me. And I will, here, I'm going to put it up here. There you go. That's my email address. If you didn't get the Zoom info, send me an email to that address and I will reply back with the Zoom info. And then we'll just keep going and get everybody up and running. Okay, we do have to end this off. Don't forget, you will get in your email a video that covers everything we covered today. And we did get everything done that we wanted to today. So there's not really any homework beyond what we did today. So if you got everything done today, you are set to go for tomorrow. All right, everybody, I have to end off, but I'm going to start up that other meeting right away and we will get started. Okay, thanks for being here. I'll see you all tomorrow.